through the etcd no auth scenario from Kube Security Lab. If you don't know what that is, check out my video on setting up a Kubernetes pen testing environment to get caught up. So first, we're going to port scan a node on the control plane. Then we find out that we have anonymous access to the etcd server on the control plane. And next, we dump service account tokens in the etcd server, and we use those service account tokens to steal the ca.key file on the API server so that we have persistent access to the cluster. Let's get started. So over on the right side here, I just started the Ansible playbook for the etcd no auth scenario. And as you can see, the cluster IP address is printed out at the end of that command. So 172.18.03, we're going to enter our client container now. Docker exec -it for interactive shell, the name of the container, and the command. I'm going to set our target IP to a variable so I don't have to type it in. 172.18.0.3. Test that out. And we're good. So we're going to start off with an nmap command, -p- for all ports, target IP, and we're going to save this to a file, output normal, called nmap. And here we are. So judging by the services, we know that this is a node on the control plane. We have etcd, we have port 6443, which is the Kube API server. We have port 10250, which is the kubelet. That's actually, you're going to find that other places, but we know that this is a node on the control plane. So we're just going to go down the list, doing what we do at each port with our handy dandy cheat sheet over here. So we're going to start with port 2379, the etcd client. And first we run this command to specify that we want to use version 3 of the etcd CTL API. That's a mouthful. Bad copy. There we go. And then we copy the command that we actually want to run. We just have to change the port, or the IP, sorry. Cluster IP is target. And running over what this command does, it uses the etcd-ctl command line interface. We don't care about TLS verification. Not really sure why we set insecure transport to false, but we do. And the endpoint is our target IP and our target port. We run a get command, and we're basically dumping everything and parsing it in a specific way, the way that is normal for the etcd server. So if it's open, we should get a lot of output from this command. And look at that, we do. No surprise, since the name of this scenario is etcd no auth, but yeah. So etcd no auth, basically we are not authenticated to any user, which means that the Kubernetes basically puts us under the user called system::unauthenticated, which is just the anonymous user in Kubernetes. And that user can have access to things sometimes if the cluster is configured that way. And in this case, the cluster, or at least not the whole cluster, but just etcd, is configured to give access to anyone who queries, basically. So we have a lot of stuff here. We know that we are looking for service account tokens specifically, and that's always a good first move because you want to elevate your privileges. So we're going to just grep. Let clear this output. Okay, so we're gonna do that same command, pipe grep token. And here we have a list of service account tokens. So each one of these is a different service account. In Kubernetes, we don't have like users in the classic sense. Like say when you authenticate to a SQL server, you're like the admin or you're a developer or whatever, and things need to be created. Kubernetes assigns accounts for services, service accounts. So these are kind of a list of tokens, aka like passwords for those accounts. And if you use these tokens, then you have the privileges that these services need. So let's find something juicy. As you can see, the secrets are divided by namespace. So /secret/cube system. That's like a really important namespace. We're gonna probably go for something with that. But no, we see admin's account token. So in this scenario, I know that we're supposed to get this one. And it actually will give us access to the cube system namespace. But yeah, that's just kind of a scenario specific detail. Anyways, so we're going to get the service account token. So now that we know what we want, we can just do get and then the name of the thing we're looking for. I think this is the right syntax. And there we go. Yes, it is. Nice. So here we have the file that is the secret for the admin's account token. Here is the certificate. Here is the token. Be careful when you copy this. Let me just maximize this so it goes better. So we're going to copy starting from the EY and onwards. And we stop right before this unrecognized symbol here. So we stop at Q. Control-Shift-C to copy. We're going to test our paste. Yeah, it pasted fine. And now we're going to save this to a variable called token for easy use. Okay, so using a service account token. I'm going to hop over to our cheat sheet. And under useful commands, remote code execution with a compromised service account token. We're going to copy this and come back here. I'm just going to clear this. And we paste our command. So going over this command, we're doing a kubectl to some endpoint. We're going to specify the endpoint in a second using a token in the kube system namespace. And then it runs the command get pods. So this is really the most important part here, the get pods part. Everything else is just saying specifically where we want to run this command. But either way, I always like to start with auth can I -- list, because sometimes we don't even have permissions to get the pod. We're going to do that in the default namespace, although this command isn't actually namespace specific. Now this is where we authenticate with our token. And we're going to run this command on our target cluster at port 6443, which is the Kubernetes API. Okay, so what access do we have? Well, we have access to everything. ***, that is everything. All verbs, all resources. Let's go, folks. So obviously there's a lot of ways that we could get what we want with all of these permissions. But we're just going to do this the way we did in the last scenario. Actually, we're going to go to the pod that's running on the API server. We're going to steal the certificate authority key, the file named ca.key, and that ensures that we have persistent access to the cluster because we can sign our own certificates. It's kind of complicated to go into, but I'll cover that in a different video probably someday. But just know that ca.key in the Kubernetes API server is really good to have. Okay, so now we're going to get pods. Specifically, we want to see what pods are running in the kube system namespace. Nice. And yeah, this definitely looks like a control plane node. We have etcd, that's always on the control plane. We have the API server, that's always on the control plane. Scheduler, controller manager. And also we just see control plane everywhere. Okay, so this is the pod that we want to be executing commands on. So we copy this, Control-Shift-C. Exec, the name of our pod, -- and then the command that we want to run. So I'm going to start with ls just to check my syntax. And now we're going to go for the golds. So cat etc Kubernetes pki ca.key. This is where keys get stored when a cluster is set up using kubeadm, which is usually how they're set up. And boom, there we go. With this, you can do a lot of damage. And that's the end of the scenario. Yeah, hopefully you learned something. If this all sounded like gibberish to you, don't worry. It's a lot of Kubernetes specific knowledge, but that's what this series is about catching people up. Yeah, keep learning and stay sharp.